Hey everybody, it's Chris here for an episode of The Process. I'm going to be talking about freelance practices where we went over lots of things like different terminology like hold, book, challenge, how you can help to manage workflow in the kind of feast or famine cycle, simple little tricks and tips there. And we talk about rates and how to prevent it from being talked down, and also what does a day rate mean, what are the hours, what's typical standard fare, and how you can avoid some of the conflict by just bringing up the discussion upfront and being clear and having it in writing. Stay tuned. Let me try this again.
I want you guys to listen to me.
Yeah.
I design sandwiches. My name is Jose Caballero and I talk about the design of business. I talk about a lot of stuff.
My name is Chris Doe and I talk about the business of design.
At the center of this operating system, it's about understanding.
Jose, can we just tell them what the show title is?
I hate you, dude.
You are watching The Process. You're Angie Stone and you graduated from Cal Arts and you're a graphic design major. What year did you graduate?
2014.
2014. Okay. Not that long ago. Relatively new graduate. And Julia Wright is also joining me. She went to Art Center and studied illustration. And you kind of took a slightly different route to come to the motion industry. You were working as an in-house designer for Urban Outfitters, and then you made the jump. What year did you make that jump?
I believe it was 2013, I think.
2013?
Late 2013.
So you guys are relatively not that far apart from each other in terms of when you entered the motion industry. So today, for the people that are joining us, we're going to really talk about freelancing woes specific to the motion industry. So all you MoGraph people, this episode is just for you. Okay, so let's talk about some of your biggest concerns. Why don't we start with you, Angie?
I hate it when studios will ask you what your rate is, and then they'll try to talk you down from that rate, because it's like, I feel like I'm valued at this much, and then you tell me I'm not, and then when I do accept that rate, like a little bit lower than what I initially said it was,
Yep.
I go into the office, they'll be like, oh, so we're actually gonna work like 10 to 11 p.m. Are you okay with that?
10 a.m. to 11 p.m. So we're talking about a 13-hour day
Yeah,
or 12-hour
like pretty
day
long.
with an hour lunch.
And then
Oh.
I'm like okay with that sometimes, but if you're telling me that's just gonna be what it is like every day, that's not cool because I have a life outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And then the second one would be getting paid on time. I have a lot of studios that take like a month or 2 months to pay me, and I have to harass them and email them like 2-3 times telling them, okay, your paycheck is this late, can you please hurry it along? And then they'll be like, oh, we're figuring this out, let me email this person, and that person emails another person, and it just becomes like a mess.
Right. Okay. Those are pretty good concerns. I got those. Julia, do you have overlapping or totally different concerns?
I had a pretty easy time getting paid. I think more often I'm the person at fault.
In terms of invoicing?
In terms of invoicing.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is really self-promotion, getting my foot in the door at new places, as well as managing the flow of offers from when they're, like I said, too heavy or not enough.
Okay, so it's like a feast or famine kind of situation. And I think that's pretty common with anybody that's doing freelance work, the feast or famine part. Okay, great. So let me knock these questions out one at a time. And maybe then, as I'm talking about this, if there are other issues that you guys have encountered, we can just bring them up. It's supposed to be conversational, and I really do appreciate you guys doing this. I know being in front of the camera is not necessarily your thing, and so I'm hoping that the information that we cover will not only help you, but a lot of people out there that are working in motion graphics. Now, guys, keep in mind, this is based on one person's point of view, my point of view. So I'm not here to tell you how it works everywhere, or even that it works beyond Los Angeles, because there's a lot of different cities and ways of working and different companies. Some are reputable, some are ethical, and some are not. And hopefully, without too much effort, you can find out through the grapevine which ones are the ones that you should work with and which ones you shouldn't, and we'll get into all that stuff. So let me just jump in with talking about your rate. Now, if you're just starting out or if you've been working for some time within the motion industry, people generally accept a day rate, and you charge a day rate. A day rate could be anywhere between on the low end of the spectrum, $150 a day, to the highest end, maybe it's like $800 or $900 a day. Back when the industry was really healthy and there was healthy budgets for advertising, the rates were really high, even for people just getting out of school. And now we're going through this adjustment cycle because, as we know, the work is starting to slow down. The rates are getting lower. The rates in which people are paying us as a company are coming down. They expect the same amount of work, but they might have half or even a third of the budget. So there's a lot of elasticity here, okay? And I'm just speaking for myself. So the first thing that you need to do when somebody asks your rate, just make up a number. It doesn't have to be your real number. What's your rate, Angie?
$450.
Okay. You notice how she said it, 450, and she shook her head? I start to think, like, is that her rate? Isn't it her rate? Is there flexibility? So the first thing you need to do is when you think about your rate, I want you, especially if you just graduated school, say it to everybody that you know, your family, your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Say it to somebody because it takes a while for your mouth and your tongue to get used to that number. So you may hear, and as many people do in school, oh, we're getting this is the rate you should ask for. But it's totally unproven and you've never said it. So the first time somebody asks you, 300? And you say it like that, and your voice goes up, it gives people room. It gives room to manipulate and negotiate you down.
But most of the time when they ask this, they don't ask you in person, they ask you through an email.
Okay,
So
I'm just
there is
saying
no
in the voice tone thing.
Yeah.
You should put in all caps and bold and underline it. Okay, I'm just saying, in the old days we would call you up and just talk to you and say, what's your rate? And then you would say it over the phone. So you do need to get used to saying that and being comfortable and confident. The other thing that you need to do is you need to be aware, what amount of work am I doing and is it worth that amount of money? So I always like to be on the over-delivering side of that because some people can shoot themselves in the foot. They'll go out there, they'll name a rate, and they do not deliver at that rate's level. Meaning there are other people in the office who can do the work and run circles around you, and a lot of tension is going to be brought upon you just because you overprice yourself. Okay, assuming now, because both of you guys have been working in the industry for a couple of years now, you know what your rate is and you kind of know the value of the work that you're able to do given certain budgets. The thing that you're running into is you figured out the rate, but the day got a little bit funky. So when they say a day rate, and a day rate is open to interpretation depending on where you go. From my mind, a day rate should be about a day. So it's like 8 to 10 hours if you're pushing it, but it should not be more than that. Anything more than that, it seems like it's a little unreasonable. Now, you can always talk about it beforehand and have some kind of agreement. We all know this. As projects get closer to delivering, the days get a little bit more intense, but that's not the norm, that's the exception. And we all know that because little tweaks happen, we have to make adjustments and render times, and you get into that last little bit, the stretch, and that's par for the course. But when somebody calls you, negotiates your rate down, and you agree, I think you have to negotiate back. You should say, well, I'm willing to come down on my rate, but I want to clarify with you what hours am I working, because it wouldn't be fair to me if I agreed to that rate and then you come back and say I got to work a 12-hour day. So I'm losing on both ends. I'm working more hours for less money. My whole thing is don't be afraid to say what it is that you're thinking. Don't be rude about it, but just say it in a fully transparent and honest and genuine way. I don't think anybody's going to begrudge you for doing that. Does that make sense? So whatever company that you worked at that did this, I think it's a little dishonest to do that. I think they knew ahead of time that they're going to negotiate you down and squeeze every last drop out of you. And I caution companies that do this because it's a very small world. Angie's a very talented designer, and she's going to do the work, and she's most likely not going to ever return your phone call. And she's going to tell people, I had this horrible experience at company not to be named. And it's going to get out there. And I believe there's even an underground forum that I'm not supposed to know about that freelancers share this kind of information in terms of blacklisting companies, talking about payment schedules and unscrupulous practices. Okay, so you guys, it's a double-edged sword. We know that the industry is small and tight, so when you go and do stuff like that, it's going to ultimately hurt you as a company. That's a warning to you guys, okay? Small world, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just be honest, have an open conversation, and also realize that the person on the other side most likely is a producer or a staffing person, and their job our job is to make money. We have to try to get as much as we can from the client and minimize our expenses, because there are those feast and famine times for companies as well. So when it gets into the famine time, we start to regret, like, why did we make so little on that money, on that job? Because now we have no runway and it's getting really tight and stressful. To your other question about getting paid on time, 1 to 2 months is a really long time. It's not a long time if you're a car company. They pay you 6 months.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of figure that out. I think upfront, you should have this discussion either in email form or verbally, just have it over the phone, but to confirm in writing so that at least you have some kind of documentation to point back and say, guys, I'm leaving because you remember how we talked about this? You said, 8 to 10 hours, and now you're telling me as a matter of policy, I have to be here for 13 hours. It's not gonna work for me. It'll work for me if you pay me more, or I'm gonna walk. That's all there is. And there's a fear of you being not professional or being blacklisted on that company. That's not a company I would ever want to go back to again, so don't worry about that. I think a lot of times designers are conflict averse. We don't like the drama and all that stuff, so we wind up taking the short end of the stick, and that's not fair. Now, I will say this though, because we've been in situations like this before, where we know up front it's a low paying job. It's a client that can't afford it, it's a music video, it's a vanity project, and we want to get you involved, and we'll be very upfront. This is a really cool project for us, the budget is X, we need people who can work at a certain rate that we can afford, and there are gonna be long, crazy days because this is the nature of the beast. That way, at least then you have the information you need to make a decision. So you look in your checking account and say, well, I'm doing all right for a little while. I'd like to work on something that's cool. I like that band, I like that artist, I like that company. I'm willing to do that. But it wouldn't be fair to you to not disclose that information up front. So that's all I have to say about that, okay? So the same thing goes with the getting paid. What are your terms? Is it 2 weeks, is it 3 weeks? What are the terms of payment? Work it out. Most companies are pretty good at doing that, but you also have to realize, and this is not an excuse for companies, they're managing their runway too, and so they get delayed from their client getting paid, they're kind of screwed. You can't write an empty check.
Yeah, but if that's the case, I feel like they should let me know. Or
they don't always know that. Like, I always check with Monica, who does our accounting and bookkeeping here at Blind. I ask her, have they paid yet? Have they paid yet? Are they gonna pay? Now, you guys should know this too, and we've talked about this, is what if they don't pay you? What's your course of action? What recourse do you have? I think it's limited. I think it's limited, and you need to know this, because the idea that you can actually sue them to go into small claims court, and you think about the time, the energy, the emotional toll it takes on you, unless it's a giant amount, it's really not going to be worth it. So you're going to sit by, and that's how this thing goes. It's an unfortunate situation. I know some people who have sued people and taken to small claims court and have won, but I also think about the emotional damage that it takes on them and the amount of time they had away from doing work. Imagine if your mind was like focused on suing somebody and not getting paid, and you show up somewhere else and you kind of do lackluster work. Now it's impacting you 2 ways. So oftentimes for me, I'm a conflict averse person when it comes to that kind of stuff. I want to have the terms clear. I want to trust people because I know the lawsuit's going to be really messy. So you know that little spider sense, the gut feeling you have? Trust that. When it's telling you, I don't trust this person, I don't think I'm going to get paid, I get bad energy, minimize your loss, walk away. That's the time to do it. That's the time to listen to that voice, all right? And you can also put in payment penalties. You can put in your contract 2% interest per month past due X days. And you can try to see if you can collect on it. So your invoice will just get bumped up every single month by 2%. That's not a lot of money. You can change it to 5%, whatever it is you want to do, whatever is fair to you.
Is that common? Have you dealt with a lot of
I don't know what's
freelancers?
common.
Oh, okay.
We pay. I've
Blind is very good at paying.
We've been in business for 21 years. I don't run a business that's hand to mouth. I want to make sure that there's runway and that when we book people, it's a commitment. And I'd pay you before I pay myself. But that's how I run my business. I hope everybody else does the same. All right? Julia, your question about getting consistent work, issues about self-promotion, too much, too little. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you do when there's too many people calling you?
I've been lucky in that I have a lot, or not a lot, but a few consistent studios that I work with, and I tend to give them priority because I know them and I enjoy working there. And then, of course, I go through the typical hold system of second hold, and then sometimes I'll take into consideration longer bookings versus shorter bookings as well.
Longer bookings are better for you, right?
Yes.
Less dealing with the churn. You don't want to deal with that. If you can get a longer booking, that's good. What else?
That's been pretty much it. It's been a lot of, sometimes it gets hard to remember who you email, who you haven't emailed, and who's where.
Right.
So of course keeping a log of all of that and keeping all of that in your email as a record.
Okay.
So I heard that from a lot of people since I've been working for a while that you should always save your first hold for yourself. Have
That's
you heard
a strategy,
that?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So then
Especially if you're in demand.
Yeah.
If nobody's calling you, that first hold is like,
But
it's a lot of
It
self-love.
can backfire.
It can backfire
how does it backfire?
because people move on.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
okay.
want somebody to commit or not. And you're like, well, you can have a second hold, or do you want a challenge? It's a ploy, and you can use it. So let's explain some things first.
If you do that, then what is the point of the hold system? Because then you basically get to choose.
I will tell you.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through some terminology here, you guys. There's something called a hold, a book, and a challenge, and they all mean very specific things, and you do need to know this basic terminology. Now, if anybody's been working for a year or so, you already mastered this, but if you just got out of school, if you're moving to the area and you don't know what these terms are, we'll put up some definitions. The first term is hold. When somebody's putting you on hold, they request the right of first refusal, meaning if you agree, and you have to honor this because your reputation will get ruined too. So if I put you on hold for all of next week and you agree, I've not paid for the time, I'm not making a commitment for that time, I'm just saying that you can't take another booking for that period without letting me know first. That's a hold. People have come out and moved from back east to California just on a hold because they didn't understand what that meant. They thought a hold was a book and a book was a full-time job. It's a total nightmare, okay? So when somebody says, I want to book you, that means they're making a financial commitment and a promise to bring you in at a certain rate for a period of time. They're booking you. Straightforward, hold and booking. They accept that. So what happens is, what if they book you and then they cancel? What course of action, what kind of recourse do you have then? So again, same scenario. Angie, I'm booking you for next week. Tomorrow I find out the client says no and we're not doing the job. Now I gotta call you back and say, you know what, the job canceled. Is there another booking you can take? How do we get out of this? Because I obviously don't have a job now. So it's up to you, the freelancer who accepted the booking, to figure out what terms are fair to you and what kind of leniency you want to give to the company. If the company is honest, good to you, you work there, you understand the situation, not pulling your leg, you may figure out some kind of percentage between 0 to 100% of the full booking. You're entitled to ask for the entire booking. Now, you could put a little clause in your email, cancellations of booking 2 weeks out, you're entitled to 75% of the fees. You can determine those terms, and you could say it up front and put it in an email, and that's what I would do, okay? Like, you know when you book a hotel, they have a 48-hour window cancellation policy. Now, as a designer, you're not going to be able to fill that slot in 48 hours. It's just not going to happen. So figure out a time frame that's comfortable for you, and also make it easy for the company, I guess. Create a win-win situation. Look, I can't fill the time. You guys pay me 50% for that time, and I'm going to do my best to find other work. Thanks for letting me know, and send them an invoice. But that should be talked about up front. I like moving all the conflict up front, meaning have it out early so you can work there with peace of mind, not worrying about whether or not you're going to get cheated, okay? The last one is called a challenge. So if I have a hold on Angie for next week, another company is going to call. Let's say your Vision calls you, because we're blind. Vision calls you and says, we want to book you for next week. And you say what? What do you say?
Wait, do I have
You have a
own
hold
first
with
hold?
blind, and Vision
Oh,
is
okay.
gone now.
Then I have to be like, oh, I have to contact my first hold and ask if they will release or book me.
Okay, let me give you some advice on how you handle that part. You should say back to Vision and say, look, I have a hold already. Are you challenging for that time? Because if they say I challenge you for that time, they're financially also on the hook. Because the worst case scenario is you say goodbye to company A, and company B says, I was just inquiring about the time and I did not book it, I did not challenge you. Those are special words you have to get them to say and agree to. Otherwise, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot, okay? So that's the hold, book, and challenge. Now, why would you wanna put yourself on hold first? Because then you can make everybody that calls you commit to booking you without allowing them to put you on hold, okay? Now, you don't have to play games like that. You could just tell them straight up, I do not accept holds. I'm available at this time. You can say whatever you want. It's a two-way negotiation here.
But does that hurt your reputation at all?
I don't know. Try it with us sometime. I'll tell you. And then, we'll never work with Angie again. That girl is so difficult. What a prima donna. No, you can say, I don't take holds anymore. I have plenty of inquiries for work. Let me know when you want to book, and I'll accept the booking. If you want to get out, I'll charge you 30%. How's that? So instead of 75, it's 30. It's up to you. Okay? That's the whole concept of putting yourself on hold first. Everybody get that? And whatever you do, make sure you email confirmation with terms and you get them to respond yes. Sending them an email and them not responding is not enough. Please affirm that this is what we talked about. Here are my terms. Okay? Now, Julia, my guess is if you're constantly being challenged or held and all over the place, perhaps you've graduated to the next level, I would bump your rate up a little bit. So what's a good amount to bump your rate up? If you're 300, go to 350. Either do in $25, $50 increments and keep bumping up until you have the same problem. Now, if for some reason you start out at $300 and people are like falling all over themselves to book you all the time, don't make a little jump. It means you're doing something special and they just are in love with you. Then bump it up to 500, make a bigger jump. So if you're being booked too little, I have an idea for you. You said you have a list of companies that you work with, that you enjoy working with. Create a group in your email program, put all their names into it, set up a preference inside your email program to not show the recipients. And so you can call it availability group, okay? And you send one email and you say, guys, I want you to let you know a booking fell through, okay? I'm available from this to this. And here's a link to my latest work. That's it, super simple. It's one massive email and nobody sees who you're emailing.
That's good to know. I had always never done that because
Yeah.
I heard it was really tacky to have 20 names.
Yeah, it is super tacky. I would delete and I'm like, what the heck? I don't want to see Vision or these other companies involved. So you suppress the email list. It's very easy to do. Corporations have been doing this for decades, all right? That's how you get around this one-to-one email. Now, if you want to do a little more high-touch personalization in terms of your email, Bob, I loved working there last time. I really enjoyed the project. Your team is great. I'm going to be free from this time to this time. Just a heads up. You could do that way, okay? You could totally do that way. If you want to take the next level up and up your game of sophistication, you can still create email lists, use a bulk email program like MailChimp, and it will put their name in there. And that's one way around that. But that's just too much work for me. I say go high touch, personal email, very specific to that company, because really there are only so many companies you want to work with anyways. And then the alternative to that is just do a bulk email, hide the list, and you're good to go. It is super tacky. Do not do that. Don't send me an email. I'll think less of you. That's totally true, what you just said. I don't want to see everybody else's email because they're my competitors. And it's super impersonal. But if you just do it like my favorite people, you can call the group my favorite people, okay? And the other thing that companies, you guys need to pay attention to is, look, freelancers, they talk. And you've said, Julia, you have your list of people that you really like working with, that are fair to you, that treat you with respect. You're more likely to take that booking. And here's one thing I would do. If you're getting a lot of inquiries for work, I would then push back and say, just curious how long the booking is for. Your preference should be to take the longer booking, all things being equal, and negotiate it back to them. Maybe they were thinking about you for one job, right? And the job only lasts a couple days or a week, and they have 3 other jobs, but they weren't sure. By putting it back in their court, they might say, okay, fine, Julia, we'll book you for 2 weeks, and I'll put you on hold for 4 more. If things go well, we can take you, and you won't have to look for work for a little bit. Believe it or not, we've booked freelancers here for a really long time because we like them and they want to stay here. So you just make it easy for the people you like to work with, okay?
But is that risky? Could that backfire? Be like, oh, okay, well, if you don't want this booking, then I'll just go with someone else.
Well, there's risk involved in everything in life. You could walk out here today and get hit by a truck, but are you talented?
I'd like to think so.
Do you work hard?
Yes.
Not at Blind, but at other places she does work really hard, because most of the times Angie's just on Facebook, apparently watching me on Facebook Live.
Because I work too fast.
You're just too good. So here are my 3 questions, okay? Do you do good work? Do you work hard? Are you a likable person? And if you deliver on the value in which you've charged, if you exceed that, saying something and being honest about how you feel about it should not jeopardize you at all. If it jeopardizes your position with that company, they're not a company worth talking to anymore. That's it. Now, I know my opinions can be polarizing, but that's just how I feel. I want to say it straight. I want to be honest with people. And if you don't like it, I understand I'm not for everybody, and you're not for everybody either. You do realize that. Don't cede and give away all your control, because then you walk away unhappy and resentful. And we're supposed to have fun. We're making cartoons all day long. We should have some fun, right? Let's not stress out over this. And if you manage your expenses well and you live kind of within your means, the amount of money you make per day is actually ridiculous. If you think about doctors and lawyers and what they charge, it's like you're doing better as a commercial artist working in the motion design industry than you would if you had gone to 10 years of school somewhere. So keep that in mind, and I think we all could be good. Julie, do you have any other questions before I wrap this up?
That's really it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Super simple.
Pretty much all of it.
Huh?
You cover pretty much all of it.
You guys just want to get out of here. I get it.
Well,
it's cool.
How about this?
Okay.
What if you end up on a nightmare project that just by accident?
Okay.
It happens sometimes.
It does happen. Well, how would you describe a nightmare project? What makes it a nightmare project?
Being there till, say, 12 at night for 2-3 weeks at it.
Now, this one was not like you knew going in that it was going to be like that. It just became they're understaffed. The job is too complicated.
I knew it was going to be a few late nights,
Yeah.
but it was far beyond what I was expecting.
Okay. So what's your question?
Is there a good way to deal with that? Is it better to kind of take it as a loss if you really like the company?
Do you like the company?
Yes, of course.
You do?
I do.
You're not talking about us.
No.
No. We don't work our people like that. Okay. What I would do is have a conversation with the person who booked you. Executive producer, coordinator, somebody booked you, right? And just to say, if you see a pattern happening, and usually it takes 2 or 3 things to see a pattern. What's this person's name? Make up a name, and you be that person, I'll be you.
Okay. So I'm the producer.
Yeah, you're my producer.
I'm producer
I'm
Bob,
Julia.
then.
Bob?
Okay.
Is your name Bob?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, Bob, can I chat with you?
Sure.
Great. You know, I've been here a couple of nights, and I realized that I've been working here to 12 o'clock every single night. And at first I thought maybe this is an anomaly, but I realized, and I also am very committed to making this project work, and I know what it takes to deliver, especially in the final stretches. But it's like we're early, and we're doing this already, and so I'm a little concerned. So I need your help in figuring this out. Is this going to be the norm? Or is this an anomaly and today's the last day this is going to happen? Bob?
Well, this project is a low-budget project that we took on for a friend, and there's just no money to pay you for extra overtime, but we still need those hours to happen.
So, Bob, you're killing me. Okay, so you're saying you have no more money, But you can't find anybody else. Is there somebody else here that's on staff that's not going to cost you extra money to help? Because I also feel like it's not fair and equitable for you to inherit this project or to accept it and then to give it to me because I didn't make those decisions. Do you think that's fair, Bob, that the decisions you make are now impacting my life?
I do understand that. We can try
I appreciate you saying that.
To pull a staff person, but we are pretty slammed, so there's no guarantee that that can happen.
Okay, so this is the classic issue, I think, of understaffing and underbidding a project. So I just feel like it's not fair to me. Do you feel it's fair to me? Would you do this if you were in my shoes?
Well, we do also employ you a lot, and most of those days are not like this.
Wow.
So that's an anomaly, right? So I don't know the specifics of this, if I like Bob, if I like what's going on, if I believe Bob, and I then have a choice. What choice would you like me to make? And then I'll tell you how to say it. You want to get out or you want to stay in? Give me one direction or the other and then stay in. Staying in is easy then. Yeah. Say, okay, Bob, I really truly enjoy working here. I've had a great relationship with you. This does kind of rub me the wrong way, but I'm committed to making this work. Why don't we keep evaluating this, and maybe by the end of this project, if you come out a little ahead than you thought, maybe you can find some more money to cover me because I'm basically working an extra half day for you every single day. Is that fair to you?
That sounds fair.
Okay. So there's some leeway here. And I trust you and I believe you when you say this is kind of the exception, but I think next time, can we have just a more straightforward conversation because this was not a surprise to anybody, Bob? And I want to continue working here and I want to feel this way. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Should I play the other scenario?
Yeah, let's play
you
the
want
other
to get
scenario.
out? Okay. The other scenario is, okay, I know you've booked me a lot and I truly do want to be here, but I cannot be here to work like this. It's unfair to me. You're asking me to work an extra half day at no extra compensation. I'll be here for you every single time, but I believe going in, you knew this was going to happen. And so I don't feel like it's fair for me to accept this. So I want to try and wrap this up sooner than later. Maybe you can have a day or two to find somebody to replace me, but I just can't do this. And I hope this doesn't negatively impact our relationship. If it does, I'm sorry, but this isn't fair to me. Thank you very much, Bob.
But by doing that, aren't you breaking your booking contract? By saying
They
you're
already
leaving?
broke the rule first.
Oh, I see.
See? They broke the rule first by saying you're only going to work X and then changing it on you the minute you walk in the door. That is not fair. They broke it first.
But what if they didn't tell you that it was going to be that long?
Well, then that's your bad. You're supposed to determine.
They're supposed to tell you the hours?
You're supposed to know.
Oh.
And you're supposed to tell them a day for me is between 8 to 10 hours within a 1 hour lunch. Is that right? Right. Okay? Did you guys do overtime? No? Okay, fine. Then at the end of the day, I will wrap up and I'll continue to do the work the next day. Is that fair? Yes, okay. Everybody, bring the conflict up front early on.
So then is it common to write that you charge overtime? Because I feel like in motion, it happens a lot. Like
Overtime?
Yeah, but you don't.
Some people won't
don't
book you because you charge overtime.
Exactly.
But that's your prerogative. Everything is your prerogative. If you're in demand and you're hot and you work, you do exceptional work, you're easy to work with, and people love you, I don't think they're going to care about these kinds of things. If you're a difficult person, your work sucks, and you're overpriced, I don't care if you give me the most favorable terms. I'm not working with you either. Some people do tell us ahead of time, I do overtime, and then it's time and a half or whatever it is. I say, okay. So when we book them, we say, we don't want you to ever work overtime. I don't want to see an overtime bill. I can't afford it. So the minute you feel like you've finished your day, walk. Just walk, and we're totally okay. And if we need you, we'll say, look, today's the day where I can pay you more because I got to get it done. I'm behind. Okay? I hate this overtime thing, and I hate these hours, because I really think you have a job. We should do a good job of figuring out, anticipating what work is going to be required and managing it appropriately, so that I don't care if you're on the internet. I really don't. I just need you to get your job done and do it well. If you can do it in 2 hours, it's because you're that good and you're worth the money. That's why I'm not sitting over your shoulder. Angie, what are we doing here?
I'm done with posting.
You're done with your work. Totally cool. Okay?
Cool.
Go ahead and look at the beauty sites. Totally cool. I don't care if you want to watch HGTV. That's totally cool by me. I'm just making up stories here, you guys. This is not the truth. Okay? All right. Anything else? No? Well, first, I want to thank both you guys, Angie and Julia, for coming on our show. And people want to get in touch with you, we'll put your information down below on your website. What's your website, Angie?
It's angieYson.com.
Julia?
Julia-Wright.com.
And Wright is spelled a little differently than you might think. It's
W-R-I-G-H-T.
okay. Thanks, ladies, for coming on. Thank you, you guys, for tuning in. I hope this episode on freelance practices within the motion industry is helpful to you. Leave comments below. Like this video if you like it, and please subscribe. And if there's anything we didn't cover or I wasn't clear about something, put it down below, and I'll be sure to answer it. Thanks.